money in politics and calling on Congress to fill the vacant seat on the Supreme Court. I'm joined now by a group of veteran activists from Washington, North Carolina NAACP President Reverend William Barber, Sirius XM host Mark Thompson, who will be participating in the D.C. protests, and here with me in New York is civil rights activist Tamika Mallory. And Mark, I'm going to start with you because you'll be a part of Democracy Awakening. It's a disparate group of sort of ideas that are everyone's coalescing around. How did it come together, and what do you expect to come out of it?
Well, first of all, Dre, thank you for having me. I really think that this is a continuation to a large extent of the issues that were raised during Occupy Wall Street. People are concerned about the power big money has in our politics and in our society. But add to that some of the relevant issues that we know Reverend Barber and others have been working hard on, the Voting Rights Act, once the Supreme Court struck down Section 4 that hobbled the Voting Rights Act, that would have done much to prevent a lot of the ongoing voter suppression that we're seeing. And then lastly, this protest takes on the issue of the obstructionism of Congress. This is the interposition and nullification that Dr. King was talking about in 1963 in Washington, D.C. at the March on Washington. The interposition and nullification we see in this case being implemented against the President's Supreme Court nomination. So we're all gathering tomorrow, really over the weekend and tomorrow, to say enough is enough.
And Reverend William Barber, you heard the Mark talk about interposition and nullification, and that, of course, often did refer back in the 1950s and 60s to states deciding that they didn't want to enforce federal civil rights laws. In your state, there is a law that has been vilified around the country for the discrimination that it meets out against transgender people. But you've talked a lot about the bigger picture on the bill, meaning that it also doesn't allow North Carolina cities to impose or to raise their minimum wage. Governor McCrory was on Meet the Press this morning, and he responded to that specific aspect of the law. Take a listen.
This law went further than that. It wiped away the city of Charlotte's ability to govern, to do some things on their own. For instance, they can't even have their own minimum wage now. Why'd you do that? Why'd you sign that? You're a former mayor of Charlotte. Could you accept all these limitations that big state government has put on city and local control?
We didn't impose new regulations on businesses, and I don't think the government ought to be the HR director for every business, whether it be in Charlotte or whether it be in Greensboro or whether it be in Boone, North Carolina. And this is that fine line between how much does government tell the private sector in a regulatory way what to do.
Reverend Barber, what's your response?
Well, the reality is what we're seeing in North Carolina is a result both of the nullification we see in Congress by not passing and fixing the Voting Rights Act. You get this extremist kind of government leadership being elected because of that, and they pass these kinds of bills. This bill, HB 2, we call it Hate Bill 2, is homophobic, it's race-based, it's class-based. The truth is, it says that a city cannot require a contractor to raise the minimum wage, to pay sick leave, to pay vacation leave, or even to have minority set-asides. It also disallows citizens of North Carolina from filing employment discrimination cases in state court. This is a bad bill. It's anti-family, it's anti-children, it's anti-workers, it's anti-civil rights. But what they did was they took the transgender piece. It's Jesse Helms politics from 1984. When you take the gay issue and you take race issues and you mix them together into this poisonous brew to create distractions. But in the midst of it, what you're really doing is going after workers, going after children, going after families, and going after the fundamental right of equal protection under the law. That's why we're having this awakening around the country. It's not that tomorrow is the awakening. The awakening is the NAACP fighting, Black Lives Matter, Moral Monday, climate change activists, women, LGBT activists, understanding the intersectionality and understanding that when you in fact have a Congress that for 1,027 days has refused to fix the Voting Rights Act. That's 1,026 days more than Strom Thurmond filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We have a problem in America. And when you undermine the right to vote, you open up the possibility for extremists and regressives to pass the very kind of policies we see happening in North Carolina.
And so, Tamika, you do see this sort of connection that you've got protests in D.C. that are centered around issues of economic justice, voting rights, et cetera, the Supreme Court. Then you've got Moral Mondays taking place every Monday in North Carolina over some of these regressive laws. Tie it all together for us, because you do see this happening and proliferating around the country. But is this a unified movement, or are these each sort of disparate atoms out there sort of in the ecosystem?
I think what you have is a lot of different people doing a lot of different things and a lot of great work happening. You have to have those who are agitating. And there are some people, quite frankly, who are a part of the movement who don't believe in policy reform. They don't believe in voting. They don't believe in any of that. They think that the system is completely dismantled, the system is broken, and that it needs to be completely broke down in order for it to work for us. But then you have people who do work within the system. You have the inside and outside game and strategy. And so you need all of those different elements working together in order to make up what we believe is the movement against all of these things that are sort of oppressing us. I think that if you look at the coalition of people who are working together for the democracy awakening, you see that there are all types of organizations that come from different aspects, and the intersectionality is real and it is necessary. So those people who look at groups that are on the ground who say, we're not voting for anyone, and they say, well, those people, we have to cast them out. Well, actually, they have a voice. They have a voice at the table because they're looking at the election process and they see that our votes are moving all around based upon electoral politics and based upon superdelegates and all these different things that you're hearing now, and people feel that they are disenfranchised. And so all of these voices have to come to the table. Do I believe that we have to pull them to our side and make sure that they know your vote counts,
right,
your voice counts, and you have to be a part of the process? Yes, but you cannot cast out any part of the movement. Everyone's voice is necessary.
Well, you know, and what you just said really sort of put an alarm into my head about people who are saying, well, the process is so broken, I'm not even going to participate. And I'm going to just go to Rev 1 for one sort of last note on that, because North Carolina is going to be potentially a swing state coming up in November. You've got pivotal statewide elections coming up in November. Are you concerned that the energy that we're seeing around these movements will not translate into any action at the polls, even though there's so much energy behind it?
Absolutely not. I think that there is an awakening. There's a moral awakening. There's an awakening that people are saying, if people are fighting this hard to deny the right to vote, we must be in a very powerful place. You know, right now, we have an opportunity over the next few years to transform this nation by transforming the South. And you have to remember, what they're really after is the solid South is now possible to be broken. We have more in the demographics are shifting. We have 135 House members in the South. We have 26 Senate seats. We have this possibility, however, of breaking this open. So more and more I talk to activists, whether they be young or old. They're saying, as my sister said, we have to fight in the air, on the ground, you know, and everywhere. We have to challenge the system. We have to connect with each other. It's not about any one group. It's about all of us coming together in this awakening that it's our time. We can't stand back. We have to stand together. And I believe all of this energy is going to push even into the polls. That's what we're seeing in North Carolina. But it's not going to end with the polls. That's what an awakening is about. It's not that the polls are the end. We have to engage this democracy fully, and we can never, never, ever back up from it. We need a movement and not just a moment. And that's what's happening in this country.
All right, and I'm taking it. You're nodding your head in agreement, Tamika. We're going to see that energy coming back at the polls. All right, Tamika Mallory and Reverend William Barber, thank you both for being with us. Mark is going to be back later in the program. And up next, the iconic Jackie Robinson gets the Ken Burns treatment. Don't go anywhere.